I love when McFarlane takes the crazy, wacky, oddball character designs from the comics that majority of us probably never knew existed and turning them into action figure form. And today we're looking at Fulcum Abominus, who is a good example of that wacky craziness. And who is Fulcum Abominus? Well, the included data profile card, as usual, will give us that information. And as you can see, there is this nice image of what this robot mech suit looks like in the source material. And you can tell that it's built by a bunch of scrap metal and junk. It doesn't look like something that was fully created to look like everything connects. And it reads down here that this is from Dark Knight's Metal, so that's where the source material is from. And on the back, there is no real name, so that is its real name, Fulcum Abominus. And it reads, after building a new war moon to host his gladiatorial battles, Mongol captured and imprisoned the Justice League. Mongol then forced hero Okimura, also known as the Toyman, to create a group of robots to combat the League, each specifically designed to exploit their weaknesses. Unbeknownst to Mongol, Toyman built a failsafe trigger which merges them into a single massive mech robot. Batman discovered the trigger and the Justice League escaped War Moon in the newly formed Fulcum Abominus. So, from that little read up, you can definitely tell that this robot here is a reference to the Megazord in Power Rangers. And it's literally one big reference. I mean, if you think about a Megazord, each compartment of it before it fuses, when they're separated, represents the color of each Power Ranger. And if you look at this thing, when everything is combined, right, every color goes together. So you got this top part that represents Batman. You got the torso area that represents Superman. You have this arm cannon that's a reference to Cyborg. This arm, I think, is supposed to be Wonder Woman. I'm not sure what this arm is supposed to represent in terms of which member of the League. As for the bottom with the legs, that's definitely Aquaman from what I can tell. This side is Flash, but there is a little bit of green here. And I think that's supposed to be Green Lantern. So it's pretty cool. I like the wackiness of this thing. It is like something that I never knew existed in the comics until this figure came out. So, I had to pick one up. And I didn't buy this at the time when it came out initially because, it's a $40 mega figure. And I wanted to wait for a sale. So eventually this thing did go on a good sale, like a really low price. And I was able to pick one up finally. And I don't regret it. I really like this thing. And it's such a cool piece to have in my collection. So, what does this mega figure, because it is one, include as accessories? Well, accessories to me are things that, are swappable. So like interchangeable hands, or in a case like a bonus weapon, right, for the figure to hold, or effect parts that can go on the figure to make it look cool, like it's blasting something. So for example, this arm cannon over here, if there was an effect piece, it would go somewhere on this thing to look like it's firing a blast. But for this figure, the wings that it includes are not really accessories to me. These are more for completing the robot, because if you search up any source material of what this looks like in the comics, it does have those wing pieces on the back. So in the packaging for this figure, they separated these wing components into different parts for the back so you can put them on. You have two longer wings, you have two medium-sized wings. So it's like big, medium, and small, right? And these all peg on to these sockets here because all these wings have little like ball pegs, and they all just go on the back, and that's how you finish it out. Because when this thing was packed in a box, they couldn't have these wings on there because it would break, right? If something fell right on the shipment box for this thing. So they separated them into different pieces so it can preserve the wings from breaking. So I don't really want to consider these accessories if they're part of the design of the suit. So if I'm going to go by that kind of logic, then there are no accessories to me. I mean, you can treat them as accessories, but I don't think they are. They're just finishing the build for this robot. All right, let's talk about aesthetics. So, what I love about this thing so much is that there is a wash on it. Like, they went back and kind of like painted this extra element into it. And I'm going to show what I'm talking about. So, if you look on the torso area right here, it's all throughout the body. So, let's start with the head. You can see a little bit of like this rusted, kind of like dirty look on it where it's like not clean. It's supposed to be a reference to, faded metal or battle damage. I love when they do stuff like this because it just shows that this thing is not new, it's not clean, it's been in use, and I love the wear and tear of it. So whenever companies do stuff like this with robots where they apply this wash where they try to make it look like it's faded, I love that so much because I love the battle damageness to it, if you want to call it that. So this kind of wash is like present throughout like most of the figure. So if you look here at the legs, there's still a bit of that wash going on. There's still this dirtiness. And then when you get to the feet, you can see that it's literally like not clean, right? Like it's covered in dirt. And I love that component of just having that feel like this thing is not something new. It's made out of scrap parts, as I said from the picture. It looks like it's made out of scrap metal. So scrap metal is not new. It's like junk. And then down here with these saws, these things can move. Like there's articulation here, which is pretty cool. And these are also kind of like dirtied out with like some faded paint on it to make it look like it's old. So I like that. And then for the arms, so let's take a look at the arm cannon here. You can see the battle damage, right? It's present, the scratch marks. And unfortunately, mine has a QC problem. You can see that this claw is warped. I could fix that with hot water. I haven't done that. I will probably get to that in the future. But yeah, this part is soft PVC. So do keep in mind that warpage is possible if you haven't picked up this figure yet and you want to. I'm pretty sure you can get this thing for pretty cheap now because it's not that expensive. It's gone on sale a few times. And then this arm over here continues that same wash where there is faded metal paint, right? Like that's what they're trying to mimic. And there's also this detail with this arm that looks crazy. Looks like a lot of components to operate that arm, right? So I love when they do stuff like this. I don't know what this claw arm is supposed to be. Does it shoot out or something like in the story? I don't know. And then on the back here, that detail continues, right? It's not just the front. So like you look at all these wing pieces, they all have like a wash to them. You look at the spine design of the mech on the back. There is this crazy level of detail there that I love. And it continues that same pattern. So I love when they do stuff like this. And yeah, this entire figure is actually not even reused sculpt of any kind. It was literally sculpted this way for this particular mega figure. And that's exactly why I love this thing. It just has this difference to it. And, I'm surprised that they've never done a repaint for this thing yet. And honestly, I hope they don't. But if they do, I would not be surprised if they want to resell this thing. So, yeah. All right, let's talk about articulation because there is some movement on this figure and it's not the best and it's not the worst. Let's just put it that way. So let's start with the head. As you can see, the head can rotate and move. So, there's a little bit of movement here. You can't really look up too much, so you can't have them like doing a flight pose where the head is looking upward, unfortunately, because of just how this back part is hindered. And one thing I didn't even say in the aesthetics part is that I just noticed like this thing doesn't have eyes. I wish there were eyes on this thing so it kind of looks like a robot head. I mean, I don't know where they would see though. Now that I think about it, where would all of them be sitting inside the suit? Like in the center area? I don't know. I'm just assuming now. So, but yeah, head movement is there. It's present. So there's that. And it's not the best, but not the worst. As for the arms, one side of my arms have QC issues. I think it's QC issue because this side doesn't want to lift up. It doesn't want to go in either. It can only do this and move outward and backwards. And it's very loose. And I'm scared of doing anything to it because I don't want to break it. So I think it might be a QC problem on the left arm. As for the right arm, this can lift up pretty good. Right? It can go in. It can articulate like that. Oh, and since it is single jointed, you would assume that maybe there's a rotation cut there. There is no rotation cut on either side of these arms. Because of the way they prioritize sculpting this time around, no rotation inside. So that is a bummer. Even though this figure is not new, just, looking back at this figure and seeing that that doesn't exist is kind of sad because it could have benefited from a swivel, right? So, and another thing I like is whenever they prioritize sculpting, they sometimes can hide certain things. So you would assume that, oh, the torso probably doesn't rotate. It might be one solid piece and there's no rotation in the chest. Well, there is a little bit of movement here on the upper torso. However, I feel like they didn't carve out enough room in between. So this movement is kind of limited. And I don't see the point of this movement here if it's not being used. So it should have been one solid piece in my opinion. But, if you're able to modify the inside of this figure, you could probably make it better. So, and then as for waist rotation, I don't think that exists. I can't really tell if it does or not. It doesn't look like it does. So I'm going to assume that there is no rotation on the underside. As for his legs, they do kick out pretty good. I like the way that these legs kick out. It's not too bad. They can kick back, so that's also really cool. And as for the splits, not too much, but it could still spread out the legs. And then there is double jointed down here with the legs, and the feet also move and swivel. And also, again, going back to this part, there is movement down here with these blades. And there is thigh cut, or not thigh cut, upper thigh swivel, not thigh cut. So that's kind of cool that those are moving. So yeah, it's always nice when those are actually working because majority of Mcfarlane figures don't really have that, or they do, but it's like really freaking tight, and then you might have to do some like modifications to it to make it better. So yeah. And the last part would be the wings. So because these wings all have ball pegs that they're that they're sculpted with, there is movement here. So however you want to move these wings, you can do that depending on how you want to pose them. So, that's an option right there. All right, let's do some size comparisons, I guess. So how tall is he next to, let me put him over here. Oh, there we go. Let's put him over there. And let's bring in anti-monitor. From the angle of where my camera is, I can't really tell. But like from where I'm seeing it upward, he's a little bit taller than anti-monitor if you want to count the, the ears. But they're roughly almost the same height. So again, what I said in the last video about like the height of this thing. Yes, it's supposed to be kind of like a Megazord, right? All the members fit into this robot. And if they made this figure way too big, it would not sell. Because one, a lot of people don't know what this is from. So why would they drop $200 or $300 on something that, it looks cool aesthetically, but do you even know what this thing is? And do you even need this for your shelf? So the fact that they had to keep it this small in order for it to, be affordable, I think it's fine. And if you have, DC figures that are smaller than this, they could probably scale with it, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Be experimental with what you have that is smaller than, around like 4 to 3 inch scale. It could probably work maybe. And of course, the last thing I want to compare this thing to, for fun, which this will not show up in the camera because it's going to be sticking out. Of course, it doesn't fit in the camera, is this Armada Optimus Prime that is a commander class. And this thing towers a little bit more over Fulcum Abominus. So there you have it. This is our look at this Justice League Megazord contraption, mech suit, robot, whatever you want to call this thing. It is a really cool design. It's really wacky. But again, I love this sort of thing. So I hope that they do more of this kind of stuff in the DC Multiverse line as they continue with, 2025 and onwards. So yeah, it's always nice to see something that I don't recognize be turned into an action figure. And I love this thing. It's cool. So those are my thoughts on this figure. And with that said, I hope you found today's review informative. If you did, give this video a like. And if you want to subscribe to my channel for more action figure content or whatever else I do on my channel, you can do so. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.